Big news out of the NFL on Friday involving the Cleveland Browns and quarterback Deshaun Watson. Our Jonathan Jones reports that Watson and the Browns have agreed on a restructured contract that will ease some of the salary cap burden over the next few years. Watson will still get the $46 million owed to him over each of the next 2 seasons. He signed a 5-year, fully guaranteed $230 million contract with the team in 2022. And Watson appeared in only 7 games this season before suffering a torn Achilles. For more, I'm joined by CBS Sports NFL analysts Ryan Wilson and John Breech. And John, some expected the Browns to kind of cut ties with Watson considering the severity of the injury and the lack of success with him under center in Cleveland. But what's your reaction to the Browns keeping him on the roster with this restructure?
Yeah, this is absolutely interesting because this is the opposite of what anyone thought they were going to do. If you've watched Deshaun Watson play at all for the past 3 seasons, I don't know how anyone could think it would be smart to restructure his contract in a way that he has now locked the organization for 2 more years just because of the way the salary cap hits are going to be structured. So to me, this is the Cleveland Browns waving the white flag and saying, we give up. We're stuck with him. We get it. We can't take a $72.6 million cap hit in 2025 and 2026. So we're going to add these 2 voidable years so we can stretch everything out. And now this is going to just create drama and really an uneasy dynamic in Cleveland, because if they do bring in a quarterback, whether that's drafting a quarterback, whether that's signing one in free agency, and now you have a QB competition between Deshaun Watson and this new guy, what happens if Deshaun Watson loses? Then you have a backup quarterback making $46 million per year on your roster. And then you look at what Cleveland's done when Deshaun Watson's been injured. Joe Flacco put up huge numbers. Jameis Winston put up huge numbers. So Deshaun Watson has had a chance. He just hasn't been successful yet. So the fact that they have tied themselves to him for 2 more years just really raises some eyebrows and something I was not expecting to see 2 days after Christmas.
Right. And you mentioned tied him to the organization for years to come. Ryan, when you look at the ripple effect into the way Cleveland approaches the draft, as Breech mentioned, how does that affect it?
It shouldn't. John's a Bengals fan. I'm a Steelers fan. And this is all you need to know. We're both excited about the possibility of Deshaun Watson coming back to Cleveland because he doesn't help that team win football games. In terms of the draft, as we sit here, they pick 5th overall. They only have a 2% chance of getting the 1st overall pick because of a team called the Giants. But if they get inside the top 2, they have to take a quarterback, and there's no ifs, ands, and buts about it because, as Breech noted, Joe Flacco literally got off his couch last year and helped his team to the playoffs once Deshaun Watson got hurt. This year, we saw Jameis Winston and DTR have some success, at least more success than what Deshaun Watson had when he was healthy. So you see the graphic here. If they can find a way to get up a couple spots, I don't know if you want to trade up a couple spots because one of the reasons they did the free structure was to create a little bit more money to make this team at least competitive going forward. We heard Myles Garrett and Joel Petonio say they had some concerns about the competitiveness of this team prior to this restructure. And Maddie and Breech, I sort of liken it to this. It's when you know you need to get divorced, but you got to stay together because your kid is about to go to college and you don't want to have to be paying money everywhere. So you're going to suck it up for a couple years, try to figure it out. But to Breech's point, if anyone outplays Deshaun Watson, he will be a highly paid backup, and perhaps he and Kirk Cousins can start a club because Kirk Cousins might be in that club too next year if Michael Penix Jr. continues to play well.
Absolutely. And some other quarterback news in the NFL, the Eagles, they've ruled out Jalen Hurts for Sunday's game against the Cowboys. Hurts remains in the concussion protocol, has not practiced this week. Kenny Pickett is in line to start in his place. He was limited in Friday's practice with a rib injury. The Eagles can clinch the NFC East with a win on Sunday. So, John, you got to think Philly would like to win this game to shore up the division before Week 18 with the much-feared Giants on their docket. But if you are the Eagles, how much do you want to put on Pickett's plate with the division on the line, or do you want to let Saquon Barkley loose to chase the record?
Maddie, I am taking the plate away from Kenny Pickett and giving it to Saquon Barkley and saying, all right, this is what we need here. You need 268 yards to set the single-season rushing record. Let's go for it this week. Let's go for everything this week because if the Eagles win this game, you clinch the NFC East. There's no shot really at the number 1 overall seed. So at that point, you go into Week 18 knowing you can rest your starter. So this really isn't the worst thing as long as they can beat the Cowboys with Kenny Pickett. And there is a little silver lining where Jalen Hurts is going to get a week to not just heal from his concussion, but let his body heal from all the hits he's taken this entire season. And the Eagles, if they've proven one thing really during their 10-game winning streak, It's that Saquon Barkley and this defense are good enough to carry this team to a win. And it's not like Kenny Pickett's coming off the street. I mean, he has 24 starts in his career. Wilson knows it all too well since they all came with the Steelers, with the other Pennsylvania team. So Kenny Pickett can do something if the Eagles need him to. We saw him make a few big throws against the Commanders, and now he'll have a full week of practice under his belt. I think the bigger concern here would be, you mentioned the rib injury that Kenny Pickett's dealing with. If he takes a big hit, now you're down a tear of a key. Now you're in trouble. So I think as long as Kenny Pickett stays healthy, they are good enough to win. Will they? I'm not sure I would bet on it, but it will be interesting to see what the Eagles offense looks like on Sunday.
Maddie, to quote Breech, Kenny Pickett can do some things if you need him to. That's a ringing endorsement for a starting quarterback. As I mentioned, as the aforementioned Steelers fan, Kenny Pickett brought with him a lot of frustration, but I will say this. He goes from not having a coordinator essentially in Pittsburgh to having Kellen Moore in Philadelphia, and he was able to make some plays last week. Devontae Smith drops that ball late in the game, and perhaps that game is over and the Eagles win it. And to Breech's larger point, just give the ball to Saquon Barkley. There's no CeeDee Lamb for the Cowboys. This defense that Vic Fangio has schemed up in Philly is one of the best, if not the best, in the NFL. Don't ask Kenny Pickett to do too much, because otherwise you could be setting yourself up for some huge interceptions or fumbles or what have you. So I think the game plan is a pretty conservative one. Let your defense do the heavy lifting, force Cooper Rush to make plays, and who knows, the Cowboys, even though they played well recently, they may have checked out with 2 weeks left to go, and as I mentioned, no CeeDee Lamb. So you play this game, and to your larger point, Madelyn, you get ready for that Week 18 Super Bowl game against the New York Giants. Yeah,
absolutely. And I think Eagles fans are hoping Kenny Pickett, yes, he can, right? You know, you got to get the division short up. Ryan Wilson, John Breech, thanks so much for the insight, as always. Now, Week 17 continues with a Sunday slate of games on CBS. The Buccaneers look to stay alive in the NFC South race as they host the Panthers. You can watch on CBS or stream on Paramount+.
When you need your sports news all the time,
we've got breaking news to bring to you.
CBS Sports HQ gives you a snapshot of all the sports that matter to you.
Big news coming out of the NFL. A lot of movement in the rankings this week.
With highlights.
What a finish at the final round of play.
And in-depth analysis.
Can they three-peat? Tony Romo joins the conversation.
What can you say about this game?
When you need your sports in a snap,
we're bringing you that breaking news right here on HQ.
Find it on CBS Sports HQ. Streaming free anywhere you are.